Hey everyone, it's Theo from Spectrum Gardening. So this would be the 4th episode on how to start your seedlings successfully inside. We've covered the correct pots and cell trays to use. We've covered how to build a grow shelf, and we've covered how to make soil, all in previous episodes. So today we're actually going to be planting seeds. However, this is not going to be the last episode of how to start seeds successfully. But before we get all into it, let's take a look at the seeds we're going to be planting today and the equipment that we're going to be using. We've got the collection of seeds here that we're going to be planting. Some of them are saved seeds that we saved ourselves. Others are seeds that other people have saved and given to us. And others are either doubles, what people had, or even that we bought ourselves this year. So we've got our masking tape. We've got a permanent marker, a pen, and of course our seeding tray right there, and our Dibble board. I know some of you right now might be wondering what exactly is a Dibble board. Well, a Dibble is a tool that you use to poke a hole in the soil with. Yes, you can use your finger, or you can even use a pen as a Dibble stick basically. However, when we plant our seedlings, we plant trays and trays and trays upon a time, at one time, and we start with 48 cells, this tray right here. So imagine sticking your finger or sticking a pen in 48 times 5 or something like that. I'll put the answer right above my head. That's a lot of holes to poke in the soil. So what we did, we custom built a Dibble board for ourselves. So we can take this board and just basically put it over a 10-20 tray, stick it down, and in one action, we've poked 48 holes versus having one action to poke one hole. It saves a whole lot of time for us. What I'm gonna wanna do is fill up our trays kind of all the way with soil. And then after I've got them all kind of filled up, I'm gonna compact them a little bit. Because the soil is so light and fluffy, that if we just plant it directly into the soil the way it is without compacting it, we're going to have a lot of compaction from the first time that we water. And that's just not going to be very good for us. So I've lightly pressed down on this row of cells along here. And you can see how much the soil has gone down compared to the stuff that we just didn't touch and we just kind of let it sit on top. You want to make sure to press it down not too hard because you actually don't want to be compacting the soil where it's hard, but you want to just make sure you're kind of getting all the air out of it. After we've compacted down all the cells, we just want to top them up with a little bit more soil, just to kind of bring up the soil levels a little bit more for when we plant. However, when you're doing this, you don't want to fill the cells all the way up because you have to remember that when you add water, it needs a little bit of room to absorb. And if you fill the tops of the cells or your pots in this, or your pots, you can actually have water spillage out of your cells or pots, and your seed can actually come out of your container, and you don't want to lose your seed. So you can see I'm just kind of gently pressing down again, and I'm just kind of taking out all the big chunks like this because that's going to be difficult for the seeds when they first sprout. Later on, when I pot up to 3.5-inch pots or into 5.5-inch pots, I won't worry about these big chunks like here. It's just when the seeds are starting, they've got such a small root system that you don't really want anything kind of impeding their path or making it any more difficult for them to create a good strong root base. Before we start planting, let's talk about the correct planting depth. So our general rule of thumb around here is we'd rather plant a little bit deeper than too shallow. What we kind of go by is by the seed size. So if you look at these artichoke seeds here versus these pepper seeds here, there's an obvious size difference between them. So we don't want to really be planting them at the same depth. What we kind of go by is seed size. However big the seed is, That's how deep it gets planted. So like you can see this artichoke seed here, that top of the seed part will be as deep as the whole seed from the top of the soil, if that makes sense. You're gonna have to forgive me a little bit on the camera angle because I'd much rather you guys see what's going on in the tray versus me right now. We talked a little bit about the Dibble board earlier and how it works. So now let's see it in action. So you can see how quickly I was able to put all the holes in the cell tray. A little bit of them are a little bit off center, and there's a few that are not quite as deep as I would like. However, I can just quickly take a pen right before I plant, and I can just kind of touch up the hole a little bit if need be. And it's way faster than doing 48 cells all individually, plus all the other trays that we have too. In that last clip, you probably saw me double seeding a couple cells. The reason I was over seeding the cell tray is because sometimes the seeds don't germinate, plain and simple, they just don't. And I'd much rather spend a little bit of money on the seed than just put one seed in each cell and have X amount of cells not germinate and then waste the space and waste the soil. It's much cheaper for me to throw a couple extra seeds in whichever cells and to make sure I have great germination. The worst that comes out of it is afterwards I just thin them out and I just choose the best plants. One of the most important things with starting seeds either inside or out in the garden is labeling. I can't count how many times I haven't labeled something still to this day. Like for example, when we moved, I'm not gonna label the pots, I'll know what they are. Came fall, everything died back, and then I had pots of dirt. And now I kind of have to wait till they all come up to see what I have in the pots. So that's the same with planting seeds outside or inside. Best recommendation is to work with one variety at a time and then plant it, and before you even cover them, so you can remember which cells you used, block it off. This is what I mean about blocking it off. First, I planted those Madame Jeanette peppers, and then I put the tape down, and I wrote on this side of the tape, Madame Jeanette. And then I moved on to the next variety. I think it was pineapple ahi, and I planted all those. And then I taped off the cells I was using, and then I labeled them right away. Same with the giant jalapenos, and same with the orange jalapenos. This is the best way I found to make sure that you're not mislabeling or forgetting which varieties you planted where. And also this way you're not writing out 50 different tags all at once, because who knows how many will actually germinate, right? If you write out 50 tags and you only get 45 cells that have seeds that pop in them, you've just wasted 5 tags. So this way it's just pieces of tape. So one of the most important things of starting seeds inside is watering. Yeah, I know you need to water the plants. I'm not per se talking about that. I'm talking about what kind of watering can that you use. If you use a watering can that has big holes in it, what's going to probably happen is the water is going to come out with such force, it's going to hit your soil, compact it, or wash it away. And your seeds are going to either rise to the top, or you're going to have to poke them down again, and just it's annoying or cause problems, or you may not see it. So what I did, I went to the dollar store a few years ago, and I bought this watering can right here. It's a pretty cool watering can. It's got Spider-Man on it. I was looking for a Batman one, but they just didn't have it, so I had to settle on Spider-Man. This one cost about $3.50, and I'll do a close-up of the nozzle part, but it's got a very fine nozzle. It comes out in a very fine stream, which is perfect for watering seedlings. I can out of my first watering after I've planted the seeds and like kind of covered them up, it's typically one watering can per tray, roughly, plus or minus a little bit, depending on how much I soak it and depending on how the soil is and everything like that. And yeah, I have to do quite a few trips if I'm starting 10 or 20 different trays at the time. However, it gives me such a gentle stream, it's well worth it. While we're on the subject of water, you're not necessarily wanting to use cold water to start your seedlings with. After they germinate, and when on your regular waterings, it's fine to use. But what we found is if we use like warm water, a little bit more than lukewarm, not enough to really cook the seedlings with, but enough to kind of just heat up the soil, and then afterwards you cover it, it's going to trap the heat a lot more. You can see that on these 3 trays, I think these are artichokes. Yeah, those 3 trays are artichokes. I watered them right before this clip, and you can already see the small beads of condensation, and you can see that the water is already forming inside. So if you watched episode 1 of how to successfully start seedlings inside, you would have remembered that I mentioned that we don't use heat mats. We don't use them for a couple different reasons. One, I just don't think they're necessary for the type of seeds that we start inside. And the other reason is I can drop my lights right down to the top of the humidity domes, and then the heat is directed a lot more inside to the dome versus having the light all the way up here. It's going to be a lot closer. So combined with having the light down here and having the heat a lot lower and directed at that, and the warm soil that we use, not warm soil, warm water I mean, I'm able to generate and keep quite a bit of heat inside my humidity domes, and I experience a very good germination rate with it. One thing to keep in mind with your lights when you're having them super low is they can melt your humidity domes. You can see on this one, it's melted. I've melted a couple other ones also because I had the lights basically resting right on the plastic. So after a couple mishaps like that, I keep them all just above the plastic now, just for safety precautions. So one last piece of advice before I let you go and before you go start off your own seedlings is keep a log of what you're doing. If you think you're going to remember what you did this year, next year, you won't. Trust me, I made that mistake before. I really have. I've been scratching my head trying to think of how many of each variety I planted, how much soil I bought, how much whatever I did. So myself, I keep a logbook. I track how much soil I bought and how much I'm going to be using this year. I track what dates I planted which varieties, and I also track how many of each varieties I planted. Like for example, I planted 12 Bulgarian carrots and 6 orange jalapeno peppers. So when I'm repotting, I know how many cells I started with. So if I'm experiencing very poor germination, then I know going forward, either 1, this variety has a really bad germination rate, or 2, these were bad seeds. So I can act accordingly to that. This is especially important when you're starting varieties that are new to you, or you're using new soil or new techniques to start things. For example, we've started leeks and broccoli this year, and this will be our first time starting them inside. We tried them a long time ago, probably about 7 years ago in our old place. We bought starts, and I'll be honest, they never did well there, so we never grew them again. But we have a different growing climate that we moved to. We have more space, and I have more room in my garden that I'd be able to put these items in full sun. So I'm going to try them again this year. The reason I didn't show you guys our method of how we made it, how we did it, is because we're trying out a new method for us. And we want to make sure that it 100% works before we share it with you. But that's also why we keep a logbook of what we did, So then we can look back next year and say, hey, this worked really well. I'm going to keep doing the exact same thing. Or hey, wow, I had horrible results with this. I need to try something different. As always, thank you for watching. And if you have any questions about our process or any comments, make sure to throw them in the section down below and we will answer them for you. So if you liked this video and you want to see more of it, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and to subscribe to our channel.